everyone. This is TAZA, a knowledge series brought to you by Alliance for Coffee Excellence and Cup of Excellence. I'm Anna Botzaglu, the marketing and membership person here for ACE. Here today, we have a live episode on TAZA. We'll be walking through the Cup of Excellence process from start to finish. And just a little bit about the competition. It started about 20 years ago. Really has pioneered integrity and transparency in our coffee industry. And really one of the goals is to set standards for increased premiums for farmers and to really serve as an economic model for farmers. So the level of scrutiny that the coffee samples undergo is really unmatched in our industry, and thousands of samples are submitted every year, with winning coffees getting auctioned on the internet, which John will be talking to today. So we have of course our guest right next to me, Cup of Excellence head judge John Thompson. And to introduce him, I thought it'd be fun to put together a top 5 things that you may or may not know about John Thompson. So let's get started. So I got to check my notes here. Okay. Number 1, he is the founder of Coffee Nexus in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he's also the owner of Artisan Roast in Scotland. So he has a few kind of positions in the industry. He has been a Cup of Excellence head judge for the last 8 years. He's known to have one of the most interesting accents in our coffee industry. It's a little bit Scottish, a little bit English from a certain area in England, and a little bit something else, something like a question mark. And he first served as a Cup of Excellence jurist about 18 years ago. So he's an OG, Cup of Excellence OG. And, I asked him what his favorite origin is. He didn't really give me an answer. So I asked him what his favorite process is, and he said wash. So there you go. And here he is, 2 turntables and a microphone. I'm gonna hand it over to John Thompson.
Great, thanks very much, Anna. That slightly strange accent. Here we go with a little bit of Geordie, a little bit of Scottish, and a little bit of Yorkshire all thrown in, just to make it difficult for people to understand in the world. Welcome everyone. And to start off with, I just wanted to agree with kind of what Anna was saying about the program. Just it kind of redefines what we really think about specialty coffee as well. When I first sort of did my panel in 2002, the world of specialty coffee was a very, very different place. Even back then on the cupping form, anything that went through to the auction scored 80 points, which is very, very different now to 87 points going through to the auction. But back then it was very hard to understand and to get back to individual producers with the purchasing and to build individual relationships. And it was really the Cup of Excellence that changed that in terms of a methodology and about helping put producers on the global platform and put them right in front of buyers who wanted to buy high value, high quality coffee. So yes, that's a starting point, just what I would like to say. So I guess moving on into the presentation. Anna, is that first slide up there? And I'll just have a look. So yes, so the first slide just coming up and just kind of looking at the coffee farmers to start off with. So even back in the relatively beginning bit of the harvest, so you've got a lot of people who are talking to, sorry, I'll just put the presentation on. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here we are. All good. Yes, so starting with coffee farmers and them submitting their coffee to the start of the program. So even now, some farmers will be looking at in kind of Latin America, Central America, they'll be looking at sort of what their plan is going to be for the harvest. Even though the actual competitions themselves aren't going to be taking place until April, May, and then the auctions in June and July this year. So and I think one of the things I wanted to sort of say about coffee farmers is that they really have a low burden of risk in terms of that initial sample assessment. And I think that's something that we might talk about a little bit later on, about where risk is in terms of that producer and end buyer relationship these days in specialty coffee. So all they need to do in terms of the submission is each of the organizing partners will be putting information out on local radio, on social media, in the newspapers, just talking about sort of getting farmers to prepare a coffee. And with those micro lots, it can be as little as equivalent as 5 bags of clean green coffee once it's been milled. But for the pre-selection phase, all they need to do is put in 3 kilos of either parchment coffee or dried coffee cherry to the organizing partner. So for them, there's no risk involved as well, but it gives them that opportunity to then really change the way their coffee is understood if it's the first time they're entering, or for people who repeatedly enter, they know that there's a chance to then move that coffee elsewhere should they not be successful. But sort of once that parchment coffee is being submitted to the organizing partner, this is where the role of an external audit company really comes in. And I think that's one of the things which separates Cup of Excellence from other quality competitions that you may or may not have seen before, which is that there's an external audit company that oversees all of the duty of care of samples from the pre-selection phase, samples coming in, up until the point of export for the winning lots through to whoever the successful buyers are. So those samples will come in and the auditors will double code them, and then they will then go through to the pre-selection phase. Something else which is happening through that pre-selection phase is the expert panel of national jury is being put together. So even sort of next month, one of the jobs I've got sort of on my list is to do a statistical review of the jury test. And I think this is something that maybe a lot of people don't realize, is that sort of that national jury of around about 12 to 14 panelists from that country, they will have to pass a test to actually be on that jury. And to do that, they'll have to assess a number of coffees that are put in front of them, blind coded, and are chosen by ACE in partnership with the organising partner to see if the panelists can recognise quality and separate off different qualities, but also reward quality and difference when it's seen there, because that's something which is sort of really important about the philosophy of program as well. Is it about when a panelist sees a sample which is put in front of them on the cupping table, that they reward that and they're able to give scores over 90 if that is a 90 plus coffee, and to recognize quality, but also to recognize difference as well, because sometimes I think sort of if you work in coffee, and cupping is an important part of your role, sometimes when you see something which you've never experienced before, we have a frame of reference about what is or what isn't quality through all of our life experience with coffee. And so when jurists are approaching all of the samples on the cupping table, they have to approach with an open mind, so that if they see something which is amazing quality but tastes very, very different from something that they've ever experienced before, that they're able to suspend that sort of expectation of what they see as quality, and then reward any new experience if it so deserves. So all of the jurists will pass a test, and they're marked in terms of their statistics on their correlation, whether or not they work in the confidence level, about their repeatability, and a number of other metrics that so we will look at. So that jury comes together, and then typically you would see a pre-selection stage of around about 300 coffees that would come through. So most competitions would be around about there, from which 150 will pass, a maximum of 150 will pass. And that's where the average calculated score is 86 points or more. So it's not just one panelist saying this is an 86-point coffee. It's all of the people within the panel saying this is 86 points or more. So to think about that, obviously they're going to be correlated together, but you need to get that average up. So you have some people who could be scoring that coffee which is just passing at around about 88. Some people are around about 85, 86. So it has to get through that point in time. Now 300 is about the average. Some countries it's a little bit smaller, where the number of producers is smaller. So, for example, Costa Rica, it's slightly less than 300, but the producer network is a little bit smaller and the country smaller. But what you'll see there is often extremely high quality samples coming through. And then I think the last competition that I supported ACE with was the Ethiopian program, where I went out with to support Paul Songa, who was the kind of lead head judge there. And we had around about 1,200 samples to work through in a 2-week window, which is huge. I mean, if you think about sort of any sort of work that you do day in, day out in coffee, and to be able to look and to objectively score over 1,000 samples in a 2-week window is a feat in itself. So if you think about sort of the logistics and the operation behind that, I think in Ethiopia we had 6 roasters working. We had a huge team of people doing all the sample preparation, the amount of water we went through in terms of the brewing, you know, the duty and the kind of the machine involved to make sure that every sample is given 100% care and attention all the way through the process is really, really important. So it could be, anywhere between 300 and 1,200. And then from those pre-selection, let's say around about up to 150 can go. We're scoring 86 points or more. And then there's an important things in terms of what are the samples and where the samples come from as we move into the next stage, which is the national jury. So any coffee which passes the national jury through to the national jury phase moves from this 3 kilo parcel that a producer put in as saying, this is a coffee that I have. And then the actual lot of coffee, whether it's equivalent to 5 bags or 100 bags, that would then pass into the duty of the care of the organising party. So you would have a warehouse that would be close to where the competition is being run in most countries. Somewhere like Brazil, they would have maybe 5 or 6 regional warehouses just because Brazil is so big. But in each of those warehouses, what's important is that the producers deliver that coffee, and that goes into the ownership of the program until either the coffee is successful and goes through to the auction and is sold to a buyer around the world, or is eliminated at some point during the competition, and then that would then go back to the producer. Actually, if you go to these warehouses, those are separate rooms, they're under lock and key, and you need special access to get in there. The auditors will have access to those coffees. And as they go into that warehouse or warehouses, what they will do, they will code those up, and then those samples will be then recoded, and those are delivered again to the national jury. And like any, is just in the same way that if I had a landed sample that would come in on a container of coffee through into the UK, where I might take 10% of a representative sample, they will take coffee through all of the representative bags and then bulk that together. So we know as a jury, every single sample that we're roasting and preparing is an amalgam of every single bag that the producer has delivered. So it's really 100% representative of the lot of coffee still in the competition. As I said, that's then delivered by the auditors who put that coffee into the organising partner, and then we enter the national jury of round 1. And then you would cup all of those coffees, and because we've moved from anywhere up around about 300 to no more than 150. It's a chance to really look in a lot of detail as to what those samples are using the cupping form. And again, you're looking in a lot more detail here, trying to understand subtlety and nuance and flavor profile. So it's not just about sort of coffees with just one big, huge flavor that you can get through some of these kind of novel post-harvest processing, but it's actually coffees that hold interest from hot to cold. So a typical cupping form session would last from sort of water being poured up until 45 minutes. And all the panelists are encouraged to cup all the way through those 45 minutes to really understand the level of detail that is in those coffees, you know. And is it clean? How clean is it? How sweet is it? What are the individual flavor attributes? And really get to explore what the nature of each individual sample. So we go through round one, and we can take no more than 90 samples in round one through into round two. And then it's really delving deeper and deeper into kind of that round two phase as well. And so looking for what are the best coffees. And I should say as well, so if in round one you had more than 90 coffees that actually scored more than 86 points, there is a cutoff there. So I've been in competitions. I remember 2013 in Brazil. It was what was then, you had separate pulp natural and natural competitions, and it was the pulp natural competition. And I think we had around about 110 coffees that scored on average 86 points or more. So we had to put a cutoff in and say only allow those 90. And then again, when we moved through to the end of the national jury, round two, we had more coffees than could go through to the international phase. So we had a strict cutoff to say no more coffees are allowed to go beyond this stage. So you're sort of working and just refining that quality assessment every single stage. Something else which is a little bit different at this part of the program, all the way through up until the international phase as well, is actually in the pre-selection phase and in the national jury round one. It's very typical for the countries to be scoring the coffees by region. So you would, and then pre-selection, say if I took Guatemala, for example, I think I've been head judge in Guatemala than I've been head judge in any other country. I think I've been there 3 times as head judge. You might be cupping Huehuetenango only with Huehuetenango coffees, or the Antigua coffees only with there, or the Acatenango coffees only with the Acatenango coffees as well. And that's an amazing part of the program because it allows for that diversification and diversity of the partner country to really be represented all the way through the stages of the competition. So you've in other countries like in Brazil, Silvio Liet, one of the other head judges, always used to talk about the amazing quality that existed in Bahia coffees, but it was only through Cup of Excellence that by cupping regionally, you started to see these coffees in Bahia progress, not just through pre-selection, but through the national jury phase and then through into the national phase as well. So by cupping by region, but then also by cupping by process, you can really help to separate of quality. And I think as any cupper would recognize as well, if you do a table of, say if I've got 10 coffees on the table and 5 of them are wash process and 5 of them are natural process, sometimes it's hard to have an objective quality separation because the inherent attributes of those coffees are very, very different. So in the pre-selection phase and the national phase as well, every single coffee will be blocked off by its process. So within the natural process coffees, you're helping to really understand within this table of natural process coffees, which are the ones of really, really high quality coming through. And then, yeah, so as we say, we move on to the international phase. And this again is where things start to really change up and we move up a gear in terms of the the level of the intensity of the competition. Always from this sort of move in the phase, some of the national jury will go on and be part of the international jury. And that again will be based on their kind of statistical performance through pre-selection in the national phase. And I think that's a really important aspect of the competition for the international jury members are there, because then they have two or more sort of jurors within the international jury panel who are really experts in that partner country, who can explain the regional difference, who can understand and explain the characteristics of their coffee at another level in terms of sort of detail over and above maybe to what the international jury have experienced. And who are those international jury? It's probably a question I get asked a lot is like, well, who are they? Why would I do it? What's important in terms of the international jury? And I think, first of all, anyone who's a member of ACE can join and put a jury application in to be a member of the international jury. It's a little bit different from when I first did it. So I'm going back to 2002. I was just an international jury member to start off with. And then as the program developed, I think one of the things they realized is that it's a huge experience to go in and to sort of to see 40 just amazing coffees from one country, and you know that they're all amazing coffees for every single one, and it's hard to separate that level of quality off, and to also understand how the program works. So going back a few years, what they decided to do was separate things off into an observer and a jury member. So the first time you take part in an international jury, you would go on as an observer where your coffees aren't scored. And so you score, but your scores don't contribute to the final score. So you can understand kind of that process of the calibration and the scoring, but then also the discussion after each individual round, where people talk about their experience of the coffees that they've just cupped and what they thought were high quality attributes, what stood out for them in terms of each sample, why it was different from another sample. And again, kind of working objectively as a panel as well. So it's not about like or dislike, it's about what was important in terms of the nature of the attributes of each individual sample and why that was rewarded in objective quality higher or lower than one of the other samples. So you've got the observers there who can come through and sort of experience that program, and then having been through that observer phase for the first year, you can then rejoin in as an international jury member where your scores count. And I think going back as a jury member, sort of you can go back with a little bit more level of clarity as to how the program works, but then also because you've got that clarity and you sort of maybe a little bit more relaxed when you go into the sort of the program second time round, you can experience and understand the coffees in a lot more detail as well. And it really is a deep dive into each of the individual producing countries, because it's very rare that you would spend 1 week basically sort of assessing one nation's samples as an international juror. Normally you would be looking at one country one day, then another country another day in terms of the cupping form. And it has a seasonality, and it's often linked to either what you're purchasing or what is being offered to you by different importers. Whereas here it's just a really hard look at one individual country. So it's really helping build your knowledge base, build your flavour memory bank as to sort of what a country is, but then also understand the regionality, because often when we live and work in consuming countries, we're only exposed to start off with the coffees that are brought into that country, whereas often other regions exist in those producing countries. So it's a chance to explore those sort of regions and countries in a bit more detail. It's also a chance to build those relationships as you move on as well. And I'll come on to that in a minute. So through the international jury round one, you can take a maximum of 30 coffees through. And again, it's really looking at detail. So you will need very, very high quality coffees to score higher than 86 points through this first stage. Anything that scores between 85 and 85.99 would then go through to the national winner auction. And these are almost like the semi-finalists that you've got in the program. They're still amazing coffees. They were selected by the national jury as representing what they felt was the best of their sort of harvest in this year. So there are still really amazing coffees. And, you know, even to that stage, there'll have been, you've got like 1,000 cups in round 2 in the national phase that have been looked at as well. So never in a normal cupping lab will you have that level of scrutiny where one individual round in the national jury would have 1,000 cups. And as we move into the international jury round 1 again, you've got that 1,100 cups being looked at in round 1. We move into round 2, and again, you're looking at those 30 coffees in a lot of detail. And the bar is raised a little bit more. So you would need coffees to score 87 points or more to be categorized as a Cup of Excellence winner and then go through to the internet auction. Those from round 2 that score between 85 and 86.99, or if there's more than those 30, again, go through to that national winner program. And there are some amazing coffees in there. So for people who might looking for access for just really high quality specialties, sort of micro lots, and the national winner program is a really good way of sort of getting in and understanding what the inherent quality is, even for coffees that don't make it through to the auction round. And then, so you've got kind of your international winners, your top 30. Something that happens between this round 2, where we've selected these coffees that are going to go through the international sort of auction, is that we would have a round 3 as well. And this is sort of a real point of celebration. This year with COVID, we've not had the ability to have international juries flying to the partner countries and taking part in international juries. So we've had global coffee centres working, where samples would arrive and sort of known and sort of respected buyers and members of ACE would be scoring coffees. I was lucky to sort of host the GCC in Edinburgh, where I had a couple of members of ACE and Cup of Excellence program who would come and cup and work with me to move through the different countries. And we sort of missed that sort of top 10, and being able to separate off the top 10 and to really recognize the 10 best coffees through the Cup of Excellence program that year. And you would never usually get to try those coffees on a table of 10 next to each other as well. So it was a chance to, through the program, that had often been on one coffee would have been on one table, and you might have had a couple on another table, and then a couple on another table, and the 10 would never have been on one table together. So it was a chance to sort of really look at these 10 stellar coffees that sort of made it all the way through to the very, very top of the program, and to recognize their diversity. And like some of these tables, they really are the best tables of coffee you will sort of cup in your lifestyle. But also, you know, I think something that often stands out through them is that you get to see the diversity within each individual country as well. I remember doing Peru. Peru was the last top 10 that I did around about October 2019. And it was just amazing. You go from flavors of kind of sort of stone fruit and peach through to sort of, there was one coffee that had this amazing sort of, they have this fruit in Peru called Lucoma, and it's kind of this rich, dense, toffee-like attribute, and sort of syrupy and viscous, and full of kind of citrus sort of like attributes. And you have a coffee that like that, or through to very floral coffees, or very raspberry-like sort of driven coffees. So you've got kind of these unique sort of coffees sitting side by side, all of which deserve their place on that top 10 table, kind of fighting it out for the top position. So that's the kind of, for me, the pinnacle, that sort of top 10. It's that sort of day of celebration, and that on that particular day, that's followed up immediately by the award ceremony. And this is kind of a point of celebration for all of the producers who've been part of the program, who've come through the national phase and coming together to find out if their coffees have made it through to the international auction. And it's also a chance for the international jury to meet with those producers, because, and this is another point of real value for taking part as an international jury member, is actually the role of being a buyer within the program as well. And that starts just before the award ceremony, because you would have round tables where producers who've come for the award ceremony can sit down and talk to the international jury and present their coffees and talk about what their farms are, what they're doing, maybe where they're exporting to, or who their export partners are, or what their hopes and goals are for their coffee farms. And some of these producers will travel 1 or 2 days to get to this award ceremony. Again, if I take Guatemala as an example, to travel from Highland Way Tenango through to Guatemala City, where the award ceremony takes place, it can sometimes take a couple of days by bus. So there's a huge effort by a lot of these producers to actually come and to take part in the award ceremony and to see how their coffee's done in that year. And for the buyers and for the international jury, you don't know if you've been sat chatting to the eventual winner of the competition, because the results have not been announced. And I know many people I've chatted to, they're amazed and aghast, because they'd swap business cards, and they'd set up links, and they'd organize samples with the person who eventually won the competition. And because the program has always been a program of discovery, where producers have come out of complete obscurity to win the program. You've got Calabas in Guatemala that sort of just arrived from nowhere to win the competition a couple of years in a row. Even recently. Sat chatting to people and talking about trying to sort of find markets for their coffee, and then sort of winning hours later, and then their coffee going through as the #1 spot to the international auction. So that awards day and everything that goes around it is amazing. And then from there, around about a month and a half later, we go through the international auction. Now, for the in-host partner, when that award ceremony finishes, they get immediately to work, sort of organising sample sets to go all around the world. And you've got buyers, whether it be Japan or the US, the UK, all across Europe, through to Russia, and beyond, down to Australia, and everyone's after sample sets. So to be able to get the coffees and to sort of see which ones they're interested in bidding on auction, and to sort of maybe put together some buying groups and see what's going on as well. And then you go through to that international auction where people are bidding online for their favourite coffees. Really rewarding that quality, that start of the journey, as I mentioned. And the start of the program is really to recognise and to reward the best quality in that country in any one year. And that's a very, very important kind of part of that program through to the international auction. Maybe just to touch upon that as a buyer as well. So as Anna talked about, I still sort of, I have a roastery in Edinburgh, and I still actively buy coffee from the Cup of Excellence program as a buyer as well. Going back to 2002, the first year I took place in Guatemala, I did buy a coffee. I think that time lots were huge, and there was a 150 bag lot that I bought. Prices were a little bit different for the coffees back then, but sort of it was a half a container of coffee for the winning coffee that I bought, whereas now typically it'll be 5-10 bags equivalent of coffee, and they're all vacuum packed now. But I think for me it's still important to actively play a role as a buyer, and I always find these coffees very, very easy to sell, and sort of my customers from my roastery know and understand what the Cup of Excellence program is, but also I think they have knowledge that it's a really high quality coffee as well, because it comes with a badge of recognition and a stamp that says this is a Cup of Excellence winner. And we have so many coffees that are put out there within specialty coffee now that are sort of, we don't know the inherent score, and one buyer might score it one way, another buyer might score it another way. But to go through this kind of rigorous process where the international phase, you've got a panel of 22 scoring jurists who've said this is a 90-point coffee for those top 10 lots, for those top lots. It's very rare that you get coffees that can score an average of 90 points or more when they're put in front of 22 panelists from all around the world. So to be able to take those coffees from the top winning ones all the way through the auction, it's a real seal of guarantee that this is a great coffee. So from my experience as a buyer, putting those coffees through the roastery to end consumers, I find that I have like a knowledge that they'll be really well received by consumers, and they are super clean, they're super sweet, and people like that kind of complexity that comes with them as well. You know, how coffee changes when you brew it through the flavour, and that it isn't just a singular flavour profile. There are multiple flavours that people can pick out from them. So I think I just wanted to recognise that I'm still invested in this as a buyer. Anna, if I go back over to you, is there anything you want to pick up on?